Welcome everyone to the University Philosophical Society. The last private business meeting took place last Thursday, the 7th of October, during which I simply told you all about the great events that we are running in this fantastic institution, and I will do the same very briefly today. There is still time to sign up to Maidens, of course. If you don't know what it is, very briefly, it is it's the same every week. If you want to know what Maidens is, it's for people who are new to college debating. It's a whole lot of fun. Do sign up. If you have signed up but you haven't turned up to anything, don't worry, there's still plenty of time. The way it marks is you are marked on the best two speeches that you deliver. So you only have to turn up for 2 weeks, and then you're in with the chance to go to the final. And I believe the prize might be an internship, or there could be some AirPods or something extremely exciting. So make sure that you do Maidens if you want to get more involved in serious debating. There's a novice training here in the G&B on Tuesdays. So that's from 5 to 7, and then directly after that there is the advanced training from 7 to 9. And if you are a woman or a gender every week it's the same response. You can come to from 6 to half 7 for the women and gender minorities practice. But if you are also a woman, and by the October 21st, you can be in with a chance to win this lovely trophy. It is solid silver or tin or something, I don't know. But this is for the Izzies, and that will be on the 21st of October here in the G&B. It's an exclusive competition for women and gender minorities to engage in some discourse. And if that interests you, if that piques your interest, you can sign up. I think this week the sign-ups will go live, and that'll be through our email. You can do that. If you want to sign up for the Irish Times debating competition, you can do that through our email as well. The link is up. If you want to listen to Francis Fitzgerald, MEP, being interviewed by Stephen O'Sullivan for Bramcast, I've always said it. I know, he's very exciting. He has a great face for radio. If you want to... I know, Stephen's lovely. He interviewed Francis Fitzgerald. That's on Spotify. We're moving on up in the world, officially on Spotify, Bramcast. And then finally, we'll be debating the motion, "This House has no faith in the two-state solution." So that will be, no doubt, a very tense evening. I think the Palestinian ambassador himself will be coming to address the chambers, so it's sure to be a very... Oh, my apologies. Herself will be coming to speak along with many other great guests, so make sure you come to that. It will be a very informative debate, obviously, with the times we live in. So there be no further business. The meeting was adjourned.
To me signing these minutes as a true and accurate record of the last part of the business meeting. There being none, I shall duly sign. Ms. Treasurer, are there any fines?
There are no fines.
Ms. Secretary, are there reports to be read?
There are no reports to be read.
The time for questions is now open.
Ms. Secretary, are there any motions on notice?
There are no motions on notice.
Are there any motions not on notice?
There are no motions not on notice.
The time for questions is now closed.
This brings us on to the general business of the Society. Are there any motions to be raised in general business? There being none, our Secretary shall retire, and we'll return with the speakers for tonight's debate. Hear, hear. Nice weather. call this House to order and I call on the registrar to read the minutes of our last public business meeting. Hear, hear.
The last public business meeting of the University Philosophical Society took place last week on Thursday, the 12th of October, here in the GMB. The motion before the House was that this House believes that the EU should side with China over the United States. It was a great debate, a great mix of, academic, serious discourse with some lighter comedic moments. To kick off, we had Finn McGrath for first proposition. He is a master's student here, and within all the quotes he furnished us with, he did say, which is quite interesting, quote unquote, "Stop trying to make human rights happen in China." So I'll just leave that there with no context for poor Finn. Then in the first opposition we had Professor Kiri Paramore, who came all the way from UCC, but he is Australian, so with that great Australian charm and that sort of magisterial academic swoop. And he told us that the EU is very strong, that the EU has options when it comes to siding with whoever we want, and that he actually questioned the GDP figures we have here in Ireland. He made a great point about how really our GDP is very large, but we are a very poor country, and he said, quote unquote, "If you want to see how poor Ireland is, you should see the colour of the water in the Lee," which I've been told is a river in somewhere called County Cork. Interesting. Must check that out sometime. Then in the second proposition, we had Professor Nathan Hill, who began his speech by apologising. He said in his rush to put on his black tie for the evening, he forgot his reading glasses. You couldn't see it, but you could see behind the podium. In his rush, he also clearly forgot to put on his dress shoes. What a faux pas. He was a fantastic speaker. He furnished us with even more facts, some very interesting ones. For example, that China has 3 centimetres of high-speed rail for every citizen in the country, whereas the US has only 1/4 of a millimetre, etc. I thought that was interesting. That's the nerd in me. Then there was Wilbur to continue the case for the opposition. Wilbur spent the first 16 years of his life in China, and he began by introducing himself as saying that he was, quote unquote, in his own words, made in China. But I have to say, his speech was great quality. And he was very, very... but Wilbur was highly entertaining, and he swung away from the more academic side of things, and he just made us laugh for 7 minutes, and it was highly, highly entertaining. He likened China and the US to his alcoholic dad and his bipolar mother, etc. It was quite light-hearted. And then to close the case for the proposition was Anna Kolar, who began with a bit of poetry, which is always welcome, and she then quoted Chairman Mao, quote, I'll try that again in English. She quoted Chairman Mao, amongst other things. And then she said, quote unquote, "China invented artificial intelligence," which I don't use to write my essays. She clearly reserves that tool for her speeches. I'm only joking, she was very good. And then finally, at the very end, to close the whole debate as a whole for the opposition, was Professor Catherine, who came all the way from St. Andrews to speak to us here, and she just belted out facts for about 10 minutes, and she told us many, many interesting things, gave the Scottish perspective on the EU, etc., and ended with the thought-provoking question, whatever we think about trying to side with America or China, perhaps China may not choose the EU. Great hush and murmur after that. The motion was put before the House, and the motion fell. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned.
Objections to me signing these minutes as the true and accurate record of last public business meeting? There being none, I shall duly sign. Welcome everyone to the University Philosophical Society, where the motion that stands before the House tonight is "This House regrets the fall of religion." Speeches are a maximum of 7 minutes in length for our student speakers and 10 minutes in length for our guest speakers. There will be a bell after the first minute and before the last minute of each speech, just like this. And that signals that points of information may be offered, and at the end of the speech there will be a double bell that signals that we kindly ask you to wrap up your contributions. We encourage general audience participation in our debates, so if you hear something you like, you can shout "hear, hear." If you hear something you don't like, you can shout "shame." Though we do prioritise respect in our debates, and if you hear anything tonight which may cause concern, our senior member of council, Max, is available at smc@tcdphil.com, and I myself am available at president@tcdphil.com. Before we welcome the speakers, I'd like to first introduce them. On the propositions bench, speaking first, we have Sydney Smith. Sydney is a second-year dual BA student and the chair of our Extraordinary Members Subcommittee here at the Phil. Speaking second, we have Hassan Ali, a final-year dentistry student. He also has already completed a bachelor's in Islamic Studies and is the current president of the Muslim Students Association. Then we have Henrietta Vanni, a third-year dentistry student and one of the speakers who will be representing the Phil at this World University Debating Championships, this year World University Debating Championships in Vietnam. Then lastly, on proposition, we have Father Peter Sexton. One of our guest speakers tonight, Father Peter Sexton, is a Jesuit priest and one of the Roman Catholic chaplains here at Trinity College Dublin. On opposition bench, we have first John Cooney. Our other guest speaker tonight, he has been the religious affairs correspondent for the Irish Independent and the Irish Times, where he was also the Brussels correspondent. He has also been the Irish correspondent for the Times of London, and has separately been invited to be spokesperson for agriculture at the EU Commission, as long as being political columnist, not columnist. Sunday Times. I don't know. Notably, he has written his pioneering book titled No News is Bad News, The Catholic Church and the Media. Speaking second then, we have Francine Ibe, a final-year law and German student and the former chair of the Odoma subcommittee here at the Phil, which she was responsible for re-establishing. Speaking third, we have Vaughan Farrell, a third-year PPS student and current pro-debates convener on the Phil Council. And speaking last, we have Owen Ryan, a fourth-year law post student and the current auditor of the Law Society. With that, I would like to general thanks to all speakers, and I call on Sydney Smith to open up tonight's debate. Here.
Good evening, proposition, opposition, chair, and esteemed guests of the Phil. My name is Sydney Smith, and I'll be opening for proposition today on the matter of this House regrets the fall of religion. Let me be clear. I am not here to preach to you on why I believe religion is God's greatest gift to humanity, why it should reign supreme, etc. Rather, when I signed up to do this debate, I was supposed to be on the lovely side of the opposition. I was raised in a household where both of my parents grew up religious, and due to their experiences, I was not raised as so. No, I grew up so far removed from being in a religious group that even labeling myself as an atheist seemed too closely affiliated with a group dynamic. But I was brought up learning the ins and outs of all major religions, and some not so major ones. Have you heard of Jainism? That's pretty interesting. So I hope that my relatively objective words will provide some insight on the matter at hand. With that being said, I'd like to first frame the motion. This House regrets the fall of religion. What this motion is assuming, of course, is that religion has fallen at all. My argument today will prove that religion has not fully, but partially fallen, and I will explain why the partial fall of religion should be opposed by each and every member of the audience. I ask you this: how can it be claimed that religion has entirely fallen when the constitutions of Ireland, the United States, Algeria, Australia, Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Liberia, Madagascar, Norway, Pakistan, Peru, Russia, South Africa, and you get the idea, all mention God? Such namings are so common that they have a name, the Invocatio Dei, or the Invocation of God. These bare bones examples lead to the same point. The Church is imbued within the state. A precursor of major changes actually being made within the government would include rewriting more than one constitution. Even in daily life, religion continues to influence you, whether you know it or not. Let's move from the government to personal beliefs. I wonder how you all feel about this. Or how about if I hold up a picture of the Prophet Muhammad? That's something that I would never, of course, actually do. I'm pretty sure that the majority of you wouldn't either, and you most likely felt some type of charged emotion to me ripping up the Pope like Sinead O'Connor. Even if, as mostly liberal college students, you aren't religious ideologies are still prevalent in your minds, and it's extremely necessary to respect religious boundaries. If religion had truly fallen, you wouldn't care to not offend those who believe differently than you do. You'd be able to go remorselessly about, turning crosses upside down and wearing yarmulkes for the trend. Of course, the facts don't lie. A study conducted by Pew Research Center following current patterns estimates that between 2010 to 2050, most major religions are either plateauing in growth or slightly declining. This is with the exception of Islam, which is increasing in proportion. Religion is not nearly as prominent as it was 100 years ago, though, which I think we can all agree with. The reason, above all else, that the partial fall of religion is so harmful is as follows. In a world where one religion is neither extremely prevalent as a source of control, nor where religion is non-existent, there is room for factional entities to develop independently of one another and to constantly compete for political and cultural control. That is what we are seeing in today's world. Different religious groups are integrated within various nations' governmental bodies, and as a result, the government is divided with religion as a factor. In many European countries, for example, the liberal-conservative scale is tied to different levels of religious ideology. In many parts of the Middle East, different types of political leaders exist within different religions and must compete against one another for majority power. The fear of religion is also prevalent enough in China that religion is banned for fear that it will undermine communism. In this highly divided world, religious precedents often can put strain on political situations, leading to the outbreak of violence. Take the recent Israeli-Hamas bombing, for example. Hamas's leader, Mohammed Deif, cited the police raids on the Aqsa Mosque to be one of the reasons for the bombing, among other topics which we don't have enough time to cover in these 7 minutes. George Washington was one of the first people to speak on the problem of factions. Of course, his context for doing so was the foundation of the United States. He condemned the emergence of political parties. He was opposed to what he believed would eventually lead to the downfall of the US. This is true now more than ever, as divisions within the US continue to increase. I'm sure you've all seen it over the news, if not experienced it firsthand. Literally, when the Founding Fathers created the Constitution, they didn't write that criminals couldn't run for office because they thought it was common sense. But that's a bit besides the point. Indubitably, factions are dangerous. I can imagine the opposition's argument. They'll cite their oppressive ways of religion, the abuse, the impractical ideals, the lack of expression that major religions allow for. The majority of these issues, though, arise from a fear of a loss of power. What is religion if not a method of gaining power? Power over the general populace, and as it exists today, power over other nations. We can all agree that religion has, in the past, been used as a justification for some pretty terrible things. But if religion either completely fell or completely ruled, the power imbalance would not be a concern, and people could live together in peace, unaware of the differing denominations that once existed. A utopia of sorts, no. The alternative to the partial fall of religion is much better than what we have today. In a world where a religion existed as the mainstream political thought, one religion, there would be no opportunity for the emergence of factions competing for their own interests. When in the world there existed only Hinduism, the oldest religion, as you can imagine, there were no religious disagreements. There was nothing to disagree about. Likewise, if religion didn't exist at all, factional disagreements would not occur. In the words of my Middle Eastern Studies lecturer today, Phoenicians were just Phoenicians. There were no Christians or Muslims. They were just all people who wanted money. The multi-party system that currently exists on our planet is dangerous, with religious tensions as a backer for political violence constantly threatening to boil over. We live in what is effectively a medium between the contradictory ideals of all or none in terms of religion, but in which there is space for constant disagreement at the risk of human lives. It is simply unsustainable. This House regrets the fall of religion as it exists today, precisely because it hasn't fallen all the way. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Sydney for that fine speech, and I call on Mr. John Cooney to continue tonight's debate. Hear, hear.
Good evening. It's a pleasure, or at least I thought it was going to be a pleasure, till I heard Sydney do her global Irish concentric tour of the constitutions of the world, all influenced by not George Washington, but by Eamon de Valera. What a lot of old codology. Don't be fooled by it. Don't be fooled by it at all. Because well, let me just first of all thank Elena, who at the height of summer sent me a very charming email which read that in view of all my history work and encyclopedic knowledge of the politics of religion in Ireland and elsewhere, I was welcome. Is that a minute in already? Right, I'm not really started, so I better speed up. Basically, I'm here tonight to talk about three villains that give me nightmares, alias traumas. My three villains are: one, John Charles McQuaid, the archbigot of Dublin, who banned Trinity College as a place forbidden unless there was a dispensation that was privileged only to people of wealth or influence, like Mary Robinson and so forth. And it's a pleasure to be here with the University of Mary Robinson and also another great Trinitarian, Dr. Noel Brown, who was the victim of John Charles McQuaid in the famous mother and child episode, because McQuaid was obsessed with sex, i.e. anti-sex. He opposed condoms, and he put a curse on Ireland if condoms would ever be in sale. He's rolling over in his grave today, but he was found out before he died by Noel Brown, or a young unknown whistleblower who came to Brown to tell him that McQuaid was a closet pederast, that he liked the backsides, the bums of young people, young boys especially, of the pubescent age of 16 basically, would lose interest when they reached maturity. So McQuaid was a right prick, literally. If you look at the cover of my, that unfortunately I don't have it with me, but there's a picture of McQuaid, the Imperial McQuaid, at the height of his power, and it was by an Englishman called Simon Elwes, who, if you look at the portrait, and if you get a copy of the original, I'd have a look at it, and just look at his biretta, his hat, you know, the hat that they wore. He's actually fiddling, and the biretta becomes his penis. So actually, the clue is in the book, and most people fail to notice that the artist was making a public statement of McQuaid, the pederast. But anyway, my second villain was Jack Delore, and my third one was the commander of the Provisional IRA in Belfast, who authorised my assassination on the 16th of March 1988. But luckily, I escaped death because my killers were intercepted in the Europa Hotel on the way to their room and were arrested, and it was hushed up. And I wasn't going to advertise it, but it left me really looking round my back all the time. But of the three, the most shocking, I think, is McQuaid, because I covered his funeral. I never actually met him. He was in retirement when I came to Dublin, exactly 51 years ago, more than half a century now, in October 1972. And my first marking in October 1972 was as religious affairs correspondent. But I didn't know Dublin. I had to check my tourist guide to get from from Trinity, to find, not Trinity College, but to get from Trinity to get to Christ Church Cathedral. I nearly went halfway to St. Patrick's Cathedral, the two Protestant cathedrals, before I realised my mistake. And I got there just in time to see Archbishop Dermot Ryan, who the previous year had succeeded McQuaid as Archbishop of Dublin. He was a tall, lanky snob, Belvedere guy, Jesuit moulded. And there was De Valera, and we had venerated De Valera because my people were Republicans on the anti-treaty side, who had fled Coal Island in County Tyrone in the occupied territories to come to Ireland, to come to Scotland, the capital of Presbyterianism, to get religious freedom and to get away from bullying and being beaten up by the thugs, the sectarian thugs in Northern Ireland. And there I saw, to my horror, Eamon de Valera, blind, half blind, stooping down to suck the ring of this new archbishop. And I thought, God, it's what the Protestants, they were right after all. Home rule is Rome rule, and McQuaid's rule had, when McQuaid spoke, you trembled. But by the time I got there, he was a burst flush. And here was Ryan coming in. And for the first time since the emergency in 1940-41, McQuaid had always boycotted what they call Citizenship Sunday, which was trying to keep a spirit of unity in ERA, as it was called, the Free State, to keep Ireland out of World War II. Neutrality was the policy, it was called. Now, there he was, kissing the ring. I thought, oh, for God's sake, this is disgusting. But then again, De Valera had wanted to be a bishop, and maybe he is a Bishop Monkey. But at least he didn't bow to McQuaid, who he got the job in 1940. He wasn't the choice of the Dublin clergy. They didn't want McQuaid from the start. He was a Holy Ghost priest. And the Holy Ghost priests, a missionary congregation, are now seen to have been the biggest crowd of paedophiles in the Irish church. Although very recently the Society of Jesus has been doing a pretty good disgrace of itself with Father Marmion, S.J. And I would like to ask you all to remember, whether you pray or not, the young boys that he, Marmion, abused and got away with in the various institutes that he was. Now, McQuaid had, in my book, I had traced that he had been a victim of abuse on 3 occasions, at least, as he was in college in Coothill, County Cavan, and the parents got worried and they sent him then to Blackrock College, where they get even more worried because of his nocturnal affections with a lay brother, a Holy Ghost lay brother, Brother Gaspard. And they then took him to Clongowes Wood College, to get him away from trouble. But in Clongowes, he got expelled, he was going to get expelled, but instead they expelled a victim of McQuaid's own abuse. McQuaid was a rampant pederast by this stage. And the poor boy who was abused by McQuaid was of a working class background. It was the working class And it was the working class that Noel Brown was defending. And who remembers McQuaid now, other than in ignominy? I covered his funeral. You'd have thought it was a saint, John Charles. He wasn't a saint. And he's gone. But after 4 years as religious affairs correspondent, I found that the Irish hierarchy under Archbishop Dermot Ryan and Cardinal William Conway of Armagh, they conspired to get the Irish Times to get rid of me. And the Irish Times came up with an Irish Times solution to an Irish Times problem, and they promoted me to Brussels as European correspondent. And I had 6.5 great years wandering around Europe, or the western part of Europe as it was, and 6 of the happiest years of my life in many ways. And then I had to come back, and then in 1983 I became a bishop in the Irish Times, a news focus editor. And I fell foul of Douglas Gageby about publicising articles that didn't appeal to him. Was that the bell there?
30 seconds.
Was that a bell?
You've another 30 seconds.
What?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, oh God. I haven't got to Jimmy Delore and how he abused my human rights in Brussels, where I was there for a second stint as the spokesman in agriculture for Ray McSharry. And McSharry gave me an order, an instruction on a big controversy that was the Americans wanted the demolition of the Common Agricultural Policy. And McSharry told me that he withdrew a proposal on cutbacks to farmers' subsidies. And I asked him, why did you withdraw it? He said, I wasn't prepared to sacrifice small farmers in the west of Ireland to big American ranchers. His words. Get the fucking message out, he said, because he was a man down to earth in language and had no French skills. Get the message out. Unfortunately for me, Jacques Delors had told his spokesman, who was my technical boss, to mislead the media and tell them that there were difficulties, yes, but the gentleman agreement was to come back in 2 weeks and resolve the differences. Get that fucking message out, McSharry had told me. And I walked, do not forsake me, O my commissioner. And then McSharry caved in, and I was coming back to Dublin and had to take the European Commission to the Court of European First Instance in Luxembourg at my own expense with 2 lawyers, and I won the case in 1995, all while trying to rear a family. My third case was the cemetery and the shooting, but I maybe try and get back to that because I can see my time is up, and I don't want to start banging in. I'm not really aggressive. But the one last final word, sounding like fucking Eamon Dunphy, the last word, that, and sorry about the unparliamentary language, it's a Glasgow habit, that this motion needs careful wording. The fall of religion that we're talking about is not as Sydney's. It's nothing to do with whether you believe or not. I agree with that part of it. But it's totally to be seen in the context that the Ireland of John Charles McQuaid was an evil paradise, if it's paradise at all. Look at all the women, the unmarried women. Look at the export of babies, because McQuaid was against adoption, and the Dáil would take McQuaid. Bidding. All that. McQuaid is the octopus. And in fact, I was too kind to McQuaid in the book, because the best critique was from a man at Trinity of the book who said that John Charles McQuaid was Ireland's Dracula. And you had, I gather, Bram Stoker here. And if he were here tonight, he'd be telling you, McQuaid is Ireland's Dracula. And I'll really say it.
This is bigger than I expected. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I am here to preach to you why religion is God's great gift to humanity. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Phil for reaching out to the Muslim Students Association and offering the opportunity to be represented here. And also I'd like to welcome Father Peter and Mr. John Cooney as our guests. This house regrets the fall of religion. As a Muslim, I don't fully agree with this proposition. And in fact, Pew Research agrees. In 2015, it came out with an article subtitled, "When Muslims are rising fastest and the unaffiliated are shrinking as their share in the world's population." The fall of religion? Not quite. But in the spirit and interest of this debate, I will propose that this House should regret the fall of religion when and if it happens. It is only religion that offers the most robust and moral, ethical foundation to address the big questions. The big questions: why are we here? What is the meaning of life? Does God exist? Is there an afterlife? It provides a set of principles and guidelines that help individuals navigate the complexities of human existence by providing a moral compass to guide human behavior. This guidance is invaluable in the world we live in, where moral relativism blurs the lines between right and wrong. These principles are not confined to the individual, but extend to interactions within society. Today, we live in a society that is hyper-focused on rights, to the abject neglect to responsibilities. Religion balances both. Religion delves into the profound questions about the nature of reality and the existence of the divine, and our unique relationship with the divine. It provides a perspective on the afterlife, where individuals are held accountable for their actions. In 2011, the Oxford Anthropological Society conducted a study of 32,000 children, and they found that children intuitively and instinctively believe in a higher power. In fact, Justin Barrett, in his literature, specifically mentions the Islamic concept of the fitrah, or the innate disposition to believing in God. One of the reliable predictors for the success of marriage, and therefore the success and the strength of the family unit, is whether or not one is actively religious. People who regularly attend services are happier and have more successful relationships. And you may refer to the works of Nicholas Wolfinger, who is a professor in the Department of Family and Consumer Studies and a professor of sociology at the University of Utah. It is only religion that can connect individuals regardless of ethnicity, nationality, language, political affiliation, personal interests, gender, and socio-economic background. Perhaps the most striking example of this is the annual Hajj gathering that unites those who are as different can be and unifies them through similar clothing and physical conditions and identicality of purpose as they traverse the plains of Arafah. At the heart of Islam's charitable ethos stands zakah, one of the 5 pillars. It is not just a religious obligation, but a profound expression of compassion and social responsibility. Muslims who are financially able are required to give a portion of their wealth to those in need. All of this is motivated from prophetic statements of the Prophet, peace be upon him, such as when he describes the community as a body, such that when any limb aches, the whole body reacts with sleeplessness and fever, and that none of you truly has faith. None of you has faith until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. Ladies and gentlemen, our own university, the most prestigious in Ireland, it was established as a Christian institute, has since 1592 been a beneficiary of an endowment fund which is worth €201 million as of 2018. One of the earliest references to the concept of endowment is traced back to the Islamic institution of waqf. It refers to a religious charitable endowment in which an individual dedicates a specific asset or property to be used for a specific purpose, and has played a significant role in supporting educational institutions, mosques and hospitals throughout Islamic history. Religious civilizations have served in preserving intellectual and cultural advancement in fields such as science, medicine, philosophy and art. The award-winning author and professor David Levering Lewis highlights that there would be no Renaissance without the contributions from the golden age of Islam. Ibn Sina's canon of medicine became the standard textbook in European universities for centuries. The translation movement, which thrived in places like Toledo and Baghdad, brought wisdom from antiquity to Western Europe. The works of Aristotle, Plato, and Galen were translated into Latin. In mathematics, Al-Khwarizmi, whose name gives us the words algebra and algorithms. In astronomy, 2/3 of the stars in the sky with names have Arabic names. Have you ever wondered why is it the case that Muslims took such a keen interest in astronomy and in navigation? It is to calculate the prayer timings and to find the direction towards Mecca. This is not void of a religious influence. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and father, for us to take the side of the opposition today is for us to say that we would not regret the fall of religion, and it is to say that we would be okay to live in a materialistic, individualistic world. It is to say that we would be okay to live in a world where marriage is not sacred, the family unit is torn apart, and society is without foundation. It is to say that we would do away with a force that binds people together, transcending divisions and promoting social harmony. It is to say, and this is true, it is to say effectively that you would rather be at UCD, and we all agree that that is a disastrous state of affairs. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, it is not in Lana we trust, but to God we submit. Thank you very much.
I'd put everything on one page, so hopefully it fills out the minutes. But we'll see how it goes. Okay. So good evening, everyone. and I've seen there's like a lot of changes. Like we've seen, you know, the walls have changed, and we've seen like the chairs have changed. I don't think they're particularly better. I thought there were going to be other changes as well. One of those being your beard, Jack. I thought you were going to grow it a little bit more, your mustache, like into an actual beard, but no, we didn't see that coming, so that's not too great. But no, that's the great thing that I love about G&B and our chamber debates. We have a mix between the old and the new. We have, you know, lots of old kind of ways we do things, like our structures, our register, our ringing the bell and all that type of stuff. But then we also have really good and modern new ideas as well coming into the debate. And we see that in chamber we have a mix between the two things, and we embrace those things together. Oh my God, 1 minute's already gone. But yeah, no, we embrace those things together, and I think that's actually kind of the joys that we have in chamber, and one of the things that we see in religion as well, and that kind of segues me into my speech. So I think the main thing, the main discussion here has been about religion and a specific definition of religion that actually wasn't defined at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually give us a bit of framing as to what religion actually looks like and what it means, or what we're saying this debate means. And then based on that, I'm going to explain why that is a problem. So I'm going to say that it's a system, the way that we're defining it, how that's a problem, and how that doesn't actually fulfill what the proposition was already speaking about in terms of, you know, your faith and belief and engaging into those things that we think is good for people to engage in. So firstly, the definition of religion. So I wanted to expand it, but I'm actually going to frame it. Fundamentally, you might think that, you know, religion is something that we relate to believing in a god, or gods or higher powers. So for example, if it's a monotheistic religion like Islam, you believe in Allah. Judaism or Christianity, you believe in God. If it's a polytheistic religion, Hinduism, and you believe in various different gods, etc., etc. But I'd like to put forward to you, or I don't need to put forward to you because it's already kind of been assumed in this debate, that religion is actually a system which has rules, which is masked with customs, practices, and rituals, which are created together and governed by a chosen, whether they're divinely chosen or naturally elected, to be the regulators of the people who are actually participating within the system. So for example, if we see in Judaism, we have the Pharisees, which were a group within the Jewish community who were enforcing the law of Moses. So for example, if you went fishing on a Sunday, that was like a no-go, or if you ate something kosher, that was like really terrible. Or for example, in Catholicism, if you committed a sin, you'd go to the confession box and you'd tell the priest all your sins, and they'll tell you the amount of Hail Marys you'd have to say. And so particularly in Ireland, and we've seen this in this debate as well, we kind of identify and see religion as a system rather than a belief order. And what this has caused, this has created borders and boundaries and parameters, both externally in terms of the institutions and also internally in our minds, in which these participants of these specific faith system or religious systems are operating in. And when they're stepping out of these boundaries and parameters and rules, that leads to condemnation, which, you know, we don't like at all. But this poses a fundamental problem. Firstly, in accordance with the actual ideas of faith and belief, which is actually fundamentally what a religion is supposed to promote, we believe personally that's a good thing, but we also believe in this society where we like to see things materially and tangibly, that's not necessarily the case with religion, and that's not necessarily the case in believing in faith and a belief order. So what do? We go to the next best thing in order to visualize how that looks like. So for example, like say if you take the word peace, you're thinking maybe of a dove or specific colors. If you think of love, you might think of like roses and pink flowers. If you think of religion, you think of people. And that has been a huge thing that has been emphasized in this debate. There's been many examples given of many atrocities of many people who are acting within a religion. And let's be real, like people cannot actually conduct a religion in the specific way that we want them to. So when we look at people, we are imperfect, we are flawed, we have many different flaws, and we are unable to actually enact what this religion, what we believe, what we want to believe in. So when you're worshiping God for God or gods or anything that you're believing in, you're believing that this person is holy, you're believing that they are perfect and they're flawed. But us being the enactors of that, we have seen the consequences of that, especially in the Irish context. Like I don't know if anybody knows like the term church hurt. I think that's definitely something that the country is is dealing with. As our guest speaker has already mentioned, we have dealt with abuse within the Catholic Church by leaders, abusing boys, abusing women who had children outside of wedlock, literally brought into laundries. And this poses a very, very big issue, especially for people who actually want to engage in faith and want to engage in the actual benefits that you get in believing something, because we believe that this is something inherent to actually living. Like, if you don't believe in a higher power, you actually believe in something in general. You might be believing in yourself. So we believe that's actually the fundamentals of a religion. But because we have defined and seen religion as a religious system, we actually move away from the actual purposes of religion, and we think that is a bad thing, because we see religion. Well, we see faith and belief as not something that you should be burdened by, where your challenges and your troubles are literally like being like weighed on you, but actually it's a way of being alleviated. We don't see a faith or belief system as one where you're condemned for your imperfections, but rather that you're freed from them. For example, if you look at those who are born again Christians, like if you believe in Jesus, it literally states in the Bible that there's no condemnation, but you're free of that. Or if you look at the term Islam, the actual word means peace. And so the opposition actually argues that with the fall of religion and the definition of religion as a system, we see that there's a fall of the walls and the barriers that the system poses. We see that there's a fall of the holier-than-thou attitude that and claims of self-righteousness. And then rather in its place, we see that the stage is then set actually for individuals to be curious and explore relationship rather than regulation. We see that they're able then to believe in something, to actually have hope for something, which is a psychological concept that like will literally be there till the end of time. And so the fall of religion actually allows for the renewal of the mind. It allows for greater focus on self-discovery, hope, faith, and individual relationship in discovering God and that higher power. And so religion and the institutionalized form of it has caused, as we have seen, so many problems in today's society and in the Irish community, and it's really, really bad, and it has caused many people to actually disengage with it. And so we believe that by the fall of religion, we have these barriers in the system being broken down in order for people to actually express and experience the real purpose of religion, which is hope, faith, and all those good things. And for those reasons, I beg you to oppose.
The debate for here.
Sorry, my laptop's like trying to connect to TCD Wi-Fi and it's kind of like blocking my speech, so just give me a second to sort that. Cool, okay. Apparently God is a woman, so in the name of the Mother, the Daughter, and the Holy Spirit, I stand before you to propose the motion before us today that this House regrets the fall of religion. Ladies and gentlemen, I think literally as human beings, we all have an innate need for spirituality. We all have a yearning for solace, and we all long to find some sort of meaning in life. I think we are literally more than the bodies we have, than the skin, like the skin that's on me, than all the like complex biological things that happen in me that I know about because I'm a healthcare student. I literally think the way we truly live and define our lives is through our soul, through our consciousness, and through a self that is apart from our body. It is the idea that in things like philosophy, I don't know, I don't study these things, but I'm in the field so I can talk about these things, and Jack Harper trains me and he knows all these things, right? I think essentially, it's the thing, I think, therefore I am. So like that leads on to a whole chain of reactions that suggests that we are more than just the physical body. I think religion is something that literally provides, like I think that speakers before me have said, like about like Islam providing questions about like existential things, like what is the meaning of life? It is literally the fact that when nobody else loves you, when you have no other friends, when you literally hate yourself, you can turn to somebody, as delusional as it may sound, but at least when it's religion, it is like a justified delusion. It's like, oh, I'm crazy and I think this man in the sky loves me and thinks I'm beautiful, even though I don't look that good today. But without religion, you can't really do that because you'd probably be sent to like a mental institution or something. I think simply at the point where religion falls, it means a lot of people aren't able to access this anymore. When religion falls, it means that, like, you know, the government probably pays for less churches because people don't vote for like pro-religious. Sorry, that sounds BP debatey. I think when religion falls, it just means that less people believe in it, and it means that less people can access all the good things that uniquely come from religion. Yeah, nice. Anyway, let me just introduce myself. Yes, I am wearing this nun costume. I went to Loretto school, so this is basically like my uniform. Right, I am actually not a nun, obviously. I am literally just a third-year dental student. But I do think nuns and dental students have some things in common. For example, literally no social life. That is why it is so bad that 2 dental students are literally spending their Thursday night on proposition of a religion motion in front of fucking Trinity, which is full of like cool people who like don't like religion and stuff. So, yeah, I think there are a few differences. I think dentists have money, whereas nuns kind of don't. But what do nuns do that dentists don't? Things that are actually useful for the good of humanity, like they kind of help the poor and things. And dentists just kind of steal your money, and they're all actually really bad. Like, if you've ever got your teeth done, it probably fails. It is the dentist's fault. Sue them. Not me, though. Not me. I think essentially, okay, let me just deal with some of the things I heard on opposition bench. This thing we like to call rebuttal. You know what, guys? Let me be a bit BP. It's taking me to Vietnam for free, so fuck it, we're gonna embrace it. No, but I literally just think that Francine says that, oh, religion isn't just like a set of beliefs and morals, it's a system of things that you have to do, perpetrated by who's in charge, followed by people who do it. This is an unfair definition. Why? I think firstly, it's already hard enough to be here on proposition bench. Stop giving us more things that we have to do to make the debate harder. I think secondly, though, that would mean that college is probably a religion, because some people in charge tell me that I have to go to classes at certain times, and it's this rule of systems I have to follow. I don't think we have to literally defend regretting the fall of college, although I love Trinity so much. I actually would regret the fall of Trinity. I'm a fucking Trinity wanker, GMB wanker, all of it. I'm in the GMB every fucking day, and I sign up for every single society. Yeah, okay, like literally that's it. Also, secondly, because I think there were some serious issues that have been brought on opposition bench, I want to note we can still regret the fall of religion and all the unique good things that it has without having to stand over and accepting the bad things. I think I still regret the fall of religion and all the good things it comes with, but I also don't accept the bad things that happen to it. I think those two things can be true at the same time, because I literally don't stand for like all of the bad things that we've heard that religion does, and I don't think anybody does in that case. So like, don't cancel me, I'm literally just, yeah. I'm not gonna get into that. Anyway, so what is my case essentially, right? I think I'm just gonna talk to you about why, because we have an innate need as human beings to find a higher, to connect with something higher than ourselves, to find solace, to find meaning in life. I simply think that as religion falls, you have alternatives to this. And I'm just gonna tell you why some of these alternatives are quite cringy. I think one alternative, for example, is literally like sports, but particularly men who watch grown men play sports and keep Excel spreadsheets of how their career is progressing. Like, dude, you are literally fucking broke. Go on Indeed and stop watching the 10th fucking Premier League match ever. I literally think that is so cringy, whereas if you're to go to a church and pray, I think that's like a super cool, super niche, super cool, super slay boss. Like, no? Some more alternatives to religion, and maybe this is like a hot take, but I literally think that like politics and ideology, like I think someone like earlier in the debate literally said, I think it was you, Cindy, you said like literally that China banned religion because it goes against communism. So that kind of helps my case and suggests that politics is an alternative to religion. Why do I think that politics is literally just kind of cringy? I think I'm just not really into it, and because of that, that's already a reason alone that I don't think it's like really too cool. But I just think it's really cringy, because you just like have like people like who kind of have like Trump flags and like posters and stuff. I think politics just brings like a lot of that like cringy type of stuff. I don't know, I just feel like it's really weird like that like people are kind of like fangirling over like old white men in office. Like, I don't know, I just think that's so crazy. At least God is like a woman. So I think that's like so much more cool, girl boss slay. Another alternative I think is actually cringy, and the girlies may not like this one, but the fucking crystals and manifesting shit, I think that is so weird. That is so, because at least when you pray, it's like God can decide, okay, maybe this is good, I'll allow it to happen. Or if I pray for something that's weird, he's gonna be like, no, get a life. But like, if I can just like write like some random guy who I'm obsessed with, who I got with at Workman's, like at Freshers Week, who doesn't remember I exist, I write his name 7 times on a piece of paper, I burn it and I eat it, and I don't know, I fucking like, y'all be doing the weirdest shit, health concerns alone. I just think that that is like really cringy, and it's also kind of scary. Like, I just feel like, are people hexing me? Like, I just don't like the fact that I don't have control over that, and like, ordinary people on the ground have control. Why do I think religion is kind of like less cringy than these things? I think religion is kind of beautiful. I mean, so yes, in a materialistic way. I mean, do you see this nun costume? Without religion, I wouldn't really be able to wear this. Like, it would be fucking weird. Okay, well, like, maybe it's weird now, but like, give it context, guys. Anyway, I literally just think that when religion falls, you have people doing weirder shit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for that sitting ovation. Makes me feel right at home here in the Phil. I'm back doing what I love most, trauma dumping instead of going to therapy. So it's been a bit heavy so far, so we're just going to have a break before our final two speeches. But it is a great turnout tonight. Thanks so much for everyone for coming, especially to the people I bullied into coming to see me. No, but it's been great this term for the Phil. We've had really big turnouts for our debates. I mean, last week you heard we had the debate about the EU. Before that, we had about eco-terrorism. We even had people voting in favour of bombing trees, which I assume that's what the motion was about. So if you are in favour of bombings, we do have a debate coming up on whether or not we would prefer a Sinn Féin government. So you might be interested in coming to that. What did I say? What did I say? Anyway. So don't worry, I will be treating this speech just as seriously as the church treats its child abuse claims. So, okay, so I am an atheist, and like I said last year in the religion debate, any debate for me about God is a comedy debate, so please don't take anything I say seriously. It's not Bible or it's not gospel. So if the church or any other religious institution does get offended by my speech tonight, I will be offering the same apology that these institutions offer to the millions, if not billions, of women that they have abused and disempowered over the millennia. That response, of course, will be absolute silence. So, I was actually baptised Catholic, so you know the whole Hey Macarena thing. It's changed, yeah, it's changed. Clearly some of you haven't been to church recently. So tonight I'm actually going to unbaptize myself. So what's the opposite of getting wet? Being turned off, right? So if any of you ever want to unbaptize yourself, as I'm going to be doing, you just have to think of something that would lower your libido. Like, just think of somewhere you could go that would really turn you off. On an unrelated note, does anyone know when the next HIST event is on? So, their girl math is absolutely amazing. I mean, they think the year 1770 occurs before the year 1683. What a silly, fun society. Anyway, back to the fall of cults. So, the consequences of religion falling means that there are less priests and other religious jobs available. So this has a severe economic impact. This is really serious, guys. So it's really difficult to actually retrain priests. This is because pedophilia is not a transferable skill set. So don't worry though, don't worry, I heard the Scouts are actually hiring. So, but if the church is looking for more celibate men to recruit, I would suggest looking at the Trinitones. They are definitely not getting laid. So, I know I'm talking a lot about Christianity tonight, and you might be asking, Yvonne, why aren't you making jokes about Hinduism? Why aren't you making jokes about Jewish people? Well, I'm actually going to refer to Dara O'Brien's answer on this. So there's 2 points why I'm not making jokes about like Hindus or Jews. 1, I don't know fucking anything about them. 2, neither do any of you. So anyway, so we've heard from Proposition tonight that losing religion is actually like losing a community. So you lose comfort, you lose someone who listens, you lose someone to cry to, you lose like a group of people that you can connect to. Honestly, you get the same level of support from lesbian orgies, so I don't think we're missing out as much. So just for those in the room, lesbians are women who love women a little more than usual. And also, for those, orgies are, they're like an intimate prayer space. So, anyway, religious institutions hoard billions of euro in assets, paintings, billions, even mass graves. Their net worth is almost as much as the revenue lost by a fun little university when a protest happens outside the Book of Cows. But I'm here because I oppose the motion that regrets the fall of religion. I actually strongly support the fall of religion, because now we can go back to hating people, not because of religion, but because of how they dress. And I know Fashion Sock will agree with me tonight. I don't hate Protestants because they're Protestant. I hate them because they wear orange. And it just doesn't go. You're walking traffic cone, honestly. Sorry, but I'm actually really honoured to be speaking here tonight. I love being a member of the FIL and I love discourse, but it's also the first time that my parents are here tonight to watch me debate. They're going to hate me for that. So my parents are actually Catholic, and they're the most generous and kind people I know. They're very progressive and they're very open-minded, and I love them very much. They actually sat me down. They're so progressive and so open-minded. They sat me down, they said, Yvonne, it's okay if you're gay. Whatever you do in your own bed is your business. Now, they didn't appreciate it when I said I did it in their bed. It's okay, don't worry, they were asleep at the time. So I think it's great that the college chaplain is actually going to speak after me tonight, because I know he will have a great explanation for the church's vicious colonialism around the world, the systematic disempowerment of women, and the millennia of persecution and indoctrination, and why we should regret the downfall of these institutions. So good luck with that. But anyway, to conclude my speech, as you saw, I'm actually Catholic. So I brought my Bible that my mum brought for me tonight. But this just, sorry. I actually brought it to prove that why having a thick ass makes you closer to God. So we should be worshipping those Kardashians. Sorry, this is a little note. My mum sometimes gives me little pre-debate notes. So this one says, please read before the debate tonight. It's very important. But I feel like we're close. I feel like we've been on a journey here tonight. So I think we should open this and read this together. And the note that she gives me today is, Dear Yvonne, good luck in your debate. P.S. One of these men is your real father. We're out of time, but come back next week to find out who it is. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.
And I call on Father Sexton to conclude the case for the proposition bench. Hear, hear.
It is. Good evening to you all, and thank you to the Phil for this invitation. I'm mightily impressed that so many students are interested in religion by the huge numbers that are here. Over my nearly 15 years here now as chaplain in Trinity, people often ask me, what do you do as chaplain? Well, I usually reply, looking straight into their eyes, every day I stand in Front Square, radiating hope and meaning. And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I have no doubt that every student here, without exception, is longing for, even aching for, hope and meaning. I dare you to deny that. And my contention is that the healthy understanding and practice of religion offers a path to these, an unhealthy one does not. I want to speak, of course, in support of the motion that this House regrets the fall of religion. But before I say anything else, I need to clarify what I mean by the key words religion and fall, which some of the other speakers have been at. For me, religion is not just a pious practice or a more or less eccentric side issue or some kind of hobby, And it's not a mere cultural throwback from an earlier superstitious age in this or any country. Religion, in the words of the theologian Paul Tillich, is ultimate concern. He means that we are concerned by many things, and by things at many levels. Our concerns, small and great, are what drive us on. But what ultimately drives us and concerns us? What underpins all those other concerns? For Tillich, religion is the answer to that question, the source of meaning and value in the most ultimate sense in our lives. Karl Rahner was an Austrian Jesuit who had a major influence on theology in the later 20th century and much more widely. He said that religion, properly understood, is the dimension of depth in all human experience. The dimension of depth in all human experience. I think the contemporary American novelist Marilynne Robinson is pointing the same direction when she entitles one of her thoughtful essays, "What are we doing here?" And when she says here, she means in existence, here in the universe. Religion concerns itself with these fundamental existential questions. Given this understanding of religion, I believe we cannot really speak of the fall of religion. Religion is too fundamental, too intrinsic to us as human beings to speak of it in that way. We can speak of the decline and fall of religious practice. That has all kinds of implications, including a certain blurring of what I might call religious sensibility when practice declines. There is little enough doubt that we see that process going on around us in Ireland now. In this connection, I might refer to what a colleague of mine once said to me of his experiences in that other place, UCD. Embracing his time as a student in the 1960s, and later as a member of the teaching staff 30 years later. As you know, even though you may not be aware of why, the Angelus bell rings at 12 noon. In officially secular UCD, which it was when I was there, no bell rang. But in the 1960s, as I can personally testify, almost every single student in a crowded library stood up, blessed themselves, and silently said the Angelus. It took a brave student to ignore what was going on around them and remain seated and carry on studying. 30 years later, in the 1990s, it took the same courage to stand up and pray silently, while all around, everyone else was seated and carrying on with their study, ignoring the Angelus bell, of course. Do I regret that kind of change? It might be argued that one kind of conformity and intolerance in our society has replaced another. Undoubtedly, one of the big changes in Ireland over a much longer period has been the use and abuse of authority, has been referred to a number of times tonight, in whatever sphere, not least in religious institutions and in the church itself. I have in mind the sense of entitlement on the part of those in authority to dominate or bully or control or demean others in all the ways now coming to light, again often referred to this evening. As we know, this happened first in the family home. That sometimes has to be underlined. It happened first in the family home, and happens first, sadly, as well as in so many other settings. It happened in a particularly shameful way in religious settings. And this has certainly and very understandably contributed to the decline in religious practice and respect for the very idea of religion, understood as a body of belief and practice, claiming some kind of divine authority. My support of tonight's motion is not based on a mere cultural change, as some of my colleagues have referred to, however far-reaching. Much of the cultural change I refer to has been for the good. But for me, this change, however deep-laid, and whether it is more or less permanent or not, does not constitute the fall of religion, because religion in its true sense is something much deeper and utterly fundamental, and no more than human nature itself. It cannot be said to fall. In the light of the foregoing and the working reformulation of the motion, let me say that I do indeed regret, rather than welcome, the evaporation of what I call religious sensibility in contemporary Irish public culture. The great poet Seamus Heaney, who many of you studied, no doubt, spoke eloquently of this process, not long before he died in an interview, and he described it as, he said, "The biggest change in my lifetime has been the evaporation of the transcendent from all our discourse and our sense of human destiny, and our experience of what he called bewildering exile into a universe with no up or down, no internalized system of moral longitude or latitude, no sense of a metaphysical roof over our heads." It has been widely noted that this decline has contributed substantially to the epidemic of suicide and the experience of loneliness, which you're all familiar with. If you think about it, and the truth is we don't think about these things enough in our culture of continuous partial attention, this is our contemporary culture in Ireland, and it affects us all. God, spelt G-O-D, the name which stands for and embodies our ultimate concern, the mysterious dimension of depth in all human experience, the source of meaning and enlightenment as to what we are doing here on our little planet in the vast universe. God is missing, but not missed, in too much of our activity and discourse. I'm convinced that in the depths of our hearts and beings and spirit, we want God in that profound sense, and we need God. You have made us for yourself, O God, Augustine, one of the great figures in the Western intellectual tradition, wrote in the 4th century, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. It was true then, it is true now, it will never cease to be true. As chaplain here in Trinity, I feel very aware of that restlessness in the culture around me, here and more widely. In that sense, I do indeed regret the present state of religious sensibility, or perhaps I might say insensibility, in our culture. Hence my support for the motion before us tonight, and I'm delighted that I'm here. Thank you.
Sorry, just give me 2 seconds. Okay. A thuachtarán a chairde agus a lucht an rasúra is Misha Owen, and I have never been prouder to speak on a side in the Phil tonight. You might be wondering at first why I have this book here with me. It's a copy of Harry Potter, and I thought if ever on the proposition gets a magical book written by someone who's transphobic, so should I. So this is my one for tonight. Religion is not the root of all evil, but it is at the root of quite a lot of it. And I think this island understands that better than most. For much of Irish history, we are a people divided by religious conflict and sectarianism, and that is brutally reflected in the Troubles. When we won our freedom in the Republic, we traded the depravity of the British Empire for the violent, evil and oppressive regime of the Catholic Church. The horrific crimes of this fundamentalist organisation against this republic are too many and too long to address in a short speech. So instead, these 2 points of religious conflict and religious oppression will form the basis of my argument tonight. I'm not going to spend too much time addressing the points that have already been raised, other than to bring up something Mr. Hassan Ali said about morality, that religion provides morality. You don't need religion to provide yourself with a moral compass. I'm an atheist, I'm a moral person. What I don't think was particularly moral was for the Muslim Students Association to invite a guest by the name of Mohammed Hijab, who was a known homophobe, misogynist and transphobe and supporter of Andrew Tate. I don't think that was particularly moral, in my opinion. I just want to say a bit about my own religious background before I begin. Like a lot of Irish growing up, me and my family were practicing Catholics. We attended Mass every Sunday, and it was a hugely important part of our community. I used to be pretty devout. In fact, I volunteered and played flute most weekends at Mass, right up until the age of 20. The reason why I stopped, I think, is fairly obvious. Even though it was just my local parish church, the idea of being associated with such a homophobic and misogynistic institution that covered up and condoned the abuse of thousands of children was just repulsive to me. Any organisation that is as bigoted as the Catholic Church and has committed the worst sexual abuse crimes in the state's history should not be legitimised in any shape or form. I know this debate is about religion as a whole, and I'll touch on that throughout my speech, but I can only speak from a Catholic perspective. I won't pretend to know enough about other religions to address their criticism seriously. So that's my background with religion, and it serves to highlight an important point about the framing of this debate. For me, this is not a debate about faith, and I think my friend Francine expressed this very well. Belief in a higher spiritual power is something of profound importance to very many people, and something I understand from my own journey, but also my family, to whom faith remains incredibly important. I don't think someone's personal belief in spirituality should be up for debate. This is not a debate about people's faith. It is about a debate about the institutions and their oppression and corruption. I have no problem if in the future new progressive and inclusive-based organisations emerge. But that's not what contemporary religion looks like. It's fundamentalist, it's conservative, and it's regressive. Religion and violence are intrinsically linked. It would be wrong to say that religion is the sole cause of all major conflict, but it has gravely exacerbated, deepened, and poisoned pretty much every human war in modern and medieval history. I ask all of you to think of a single conflict that would not be improved by a mass conversion to secularism. Religion is a powerful form of identity that overrides the compassion of humanity, causing people to commit horrific acts in the name of God. The Crusades, the Troubles, the Balkans, ISIS, the Taliban, the Christchurch shooting. You need only point to the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict to show the damage that religion has done. There is a huge amount of academic research to show religious values and attitudes are among the primary drivers of homophobic speech and attack. All the major Abrahamic religions, that is Christianity, Islam and Judaism, among others, have been the chief prophets of homophobia and violent rhetoric against the queer community. According to a 2020 report from the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association, they found that all 11 countries or regions which imposed the death penalty for same-sex acts were justified and referred to Sharia-based Islamic law. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, promulgated by Pope John Paul II, sets out the doctrine of the organisation. On page 566, paragraph 2357 of the Catechism, the Church describes being gay, and I'm quoting directly here, as acts of grave depravity, contrary to natural law, intrinsically and objectively disordered, which under no circumstances can be proved. I feel like I don't even have to say anything. What a load of fucking drivel. And the proposition still have to have their thinking caps on about why religion is a bad thing. And just to say, before someone poses some POI that since Pope Francis there have been some minor shifts in the level of anti-gay propaganda coming out of the church, give me a fucking break. There is no way I am giving someone credit for coming out with a wild hot take that gay people shouldn't be murdered by the state. Congrats, Francis. You've just achieved something that has taken thousands and thousands of years to come to, while you have completely demonized an entire community. It is absolutely unbelievable that people would give an ounce of credit to the church for this minor shift in their policy position. I saw just before marriage equality, the Archbishop of Dublin, Diarmuid Martin, lamented Ireland's culture of homophobia and said we needed to move away from it. Who the hell do you think created that culture of homophobia and continues to promote and exacerbate it with their refusal to recognise same-sex marriage and rigid adherence to their disgusting doctrine? The Catholic Church did. How anyone who decided to join, and remember, each individual priest took a conscious and considered decision to join the church, how anyone can decide to join what is the pinnacle of the patriarchy and the world's largest producer of horrific anti-gay violent propaganda can credibly get up and say they condemn misogyny and homophobia is beyond me and is hypocrisy of the highest order. I have spoken mainly of the rank homophobia of religion because that's my personal experience, but be in no doubt about the visceral and insidious hatred religious organisations have of women. When people say, what is the patriarchy? There it is. I don't care how you spin it. The Catholic Church and so many other religions are literally the most blatant patriarchal and misogynistic institutions in the world. Father Sexton spoke of hope and meaning, yet that is all the Catholic Church has removed from my life as I grew up. The Catholic Church will never come close to comprehending the feeling of a young boy hiding his sexuality who is sitting on a hard wooden pew in a rural church as the local priest preaches fire and brimstone about being gay. The trauma that inflicts on someone is reprehensible. How anyone could stand here in good faith and not acknowledge that kind of shame that the Church has caused is beyond me. The Church will never know the damage and shame that they have caused to so many women by condemning and opposing their right to bodily autonomy at every turn. The rhetoric used by the Church to lecture women on their position in society, on promiscuity, on their right to an abortion is horrific. And as the linchpin of the patriarchy, it's something they don't even care to try and pretend to understand about. After the shame of creating a culture of homophobia in this country, the shame about denying women control over their bodies, the shame of the Magdalene laundries, and the shame of systemic sexual abuse, the Church is still completely self-assured in its doctrine and dogma of hate. For an organisation that extols the virtues of shame, penance, and repentance, where is the Church's? Where is the Church's shame? I'll conclude with this. We all have a role to play in dismantling the structures of patriarchy and homophobia. And if you're sitting here tonight and thinking, well, I'm religious, but I'm certainly not misogynistic or homophobic, I am begging with you, I am pleading with you to stand up for women's rights, stand up for gay rights, and stand up against the Church. Stop legitimising their disgusting and horrific doctrine. Stop giving them money. Stop giving them airtime. Stop allowing them to get away with this. I would never join an organisation that would brand all Catholics as intrinsically disordered. So as a person that is so demonised by the Church, I beg you to do the same. Reject their ideology. All I want and all most people want is respect. And as long as religion continues to promote bigotry against women and queer people, we will never be able to live freely. I urge you to oppose the motion.
Tonight. Just before I call a vote, I'd like to inform you all will be hosting a reception.
Point of order, please. I must be heard. I regard this motion as tepid. It's meaningless. I put the motion down that this House deplores the legacy of McQuaid and the misogynistic, and it also, despite our inbred Carol Danner here, it's a Trojan horse if you vote yes to the motion as it stood. Throw it out. Condemn the past. It's the only way to purge it. And don't be seen to betray the other great women of Trinity. Wolf Tone, the United Irishmen, the brotherhood of men and women, Catholic and Protestant.
Order, thank you.
Vote to deplore. But to the vote, to deplore. And
apologies, Mr.
throw the
Need to
motion
call
out.
it to a vote. very much for that point of order. And now for the vote itself, just to let you know, after the vote, we'll be hosting a wine reception in next door with also other refreshments, like non-alcoholic varieties and also snacks. So please join us next door after the vote. With that, if you would like to vote in favour of the proposition, vote say aye, and if you'd like to vote against, say nay. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Nay. I think the nays have it. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.